Good afternoon and welcome to Senator Merv Riepe, legislative candidate from District 12. Thank you, Senator, for joining us for our virtual legislative candidate meetings. My name is Gina Ragland, and joining me today are AARP lead advocacy volunteers, Joyce Beck, Danny DeLong, and Mike Barwig. Emily Wick is also joining us today to assist with some of the technical details for the program. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded and will be shared with AARP members across your district prior to the election. Senator Riepe, we appreciate your taking the next 30 minutes of your time to meet and discuss issues of importance to the 50+ voter and their families in your district and across Nebraska. As a short background, AARP is the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering and strengthening people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. As people live longer, healthier lives, we know we need to think differently about what it means to age. With that, Senator Riepe, I'm going to give the microphone back to you and have you give us a little background about yourself and your campaign, and thinking 5 minutes or less on that would be great. And once we've completed that, we'll jump into some of the questions. So with that, Senator Riepe, I'll give you the mic. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. I will try to be brief here. I was born and raised on a farm, a grain farm, with 3 sisters. My intent was, or my family's intent as well, for me to go back and be a farmer. At the age of 17, 2 weeks out of high school, I enlisted in the Navy. I served as a hospital corpsman in the Navy, and upon honorable discharge, I returned to Nebraska. I went to school, first at UNO and grad school at Iowa, and then subsequently I was on the administrative staff at Bergen Mercy Hospital for 18 years. Part of those 18 years, 5 of those I served as the chief operating officer, and I served 1.5 years as the interim chief executive. Then I was at Children's Hospital, where I was on the staff for 15 years. A number of those years I was president of Children's Physicians. I just mention those positions so that people understand kind of where my involvement was. When I retired from Children's, I ran for the legislature in 2014. I won that election for District 12. And while in the legislature, I was elected by my peers to serve 2 of those years as chairman of the Health and Human Services Committee. I ran for re-election in 2018. I had a very good opponent. And I also had a big blue wave that kind of came through Omaha at the time. They were basically, the group was going after Don Bacon, I believe, but he had Sarpy County. I didn't, and so I, along with a number of other conservatives, lost in that election. I was still restless, wanted to participate. I liked the engagement, and so I ran for and was elected to and currently serve on the Ralston School Board. And that kind of brings us up to date. I will add, I did have, in a race of 4 in the primary, I received 45% of the votes, so I had very strong showing there. And I am currently, part of it is because I like to contact with voters. I've started walking at the west end of my district, which is 144th Street, and I am now at about 78th Street, trying to close out on walking high voters between now and the election on November 8th. I have done this personally, in part because I think people need to meet the candidate. They don't want to meet someone else. And I also, my interest is to show that I have the stamina for that. I also walked in the Ralston Parade and then walked again in the Miller Days Parade. I'm not a back of the car, sit and wave kind of a candidate. I think you have to get into it and work for it. The only other thing that I would say, I am perceived as being ahead in this particular race, but I refuse to be the story of the tortoise and the hare and be the hare that falls asleep under the tree. So I am running a strong and active campaign and will up until November 8th, the day of election.
Perfect. Thank you,
That's
Senator.
about all I have. Okay.
Perfect. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you there. I apologize.
No.
But thank you again for that background, your bio. Again, thank you for serving in the legislature past that you have, and appreciate your leadership there. Moving on then, just again, because of our time constraints, we did provide to you ahead of time a set of 3 issues containing 4 questions. pertaining to the 50+ in Nebraska. Again, because of our time constraints, we're looking around 5 minutes for each question. So the first one that we have today is on health, caregiving, and home and community-based services. And Mike Barwig is going to take that. So I'm going to give the mic to Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Senator.
Good morning. Good afternoon, I guess.
Home and community-based services, also known as HCBS, provides an array of services designed to assist individuals with activities of daily living that promotes independence, to support them to age in place or delay institutional care. A family caregiver is any family member, friend, or acquaintance who cares for another person that is unable to live independently, often without pay. Telehealth services can be significant for older adults in rural areas or underserved communities, while also providing support to family caregivers by reducing travel, wait times, and costs associated with in-person care. The first part of the question is, what would you do to support the 240,000 unpaid family caregivers in Nebraska through policies such as enhanced respite services, access to telehealth, caregiver education and training, and help with out-of-pocket costs? And the second part of the question is, what will you do to protect and/or expand the home and community-based services, HCBS program, particularly recruitment and retention of a sufficient workforce and adequate funding of the services that Nebraskans and their families rely on?
That's a big question. Or questions. Let me start out, and then I'm going to ask you, if I don't address the specific issue that you want me to, then, challenge me to go back and do that. First of all, with a background, I've served almost 40 years. I've been in healthcare since I was 18 years old in the Navy. And in that healthcare, I wasn't always an administrator type. I did, as a hospital corpsman, I did bedside care. I was a respiratory therapist trained at right out of the Navy. And so with that, I did bedside care. I believe for a couple of reasons. First of all, I think it's healthy, in my opinion, for people to stay in their homes as long as they can, and whatever we need to do to make sure that they, A, live in a safe home, and B, have the help that they need. Because if we don't, with the price, and I understand the cost of nursing home and homes and other items like that, but it's to the state's advantage to do this at the least expensive while having compassionate and quality health care. I believe in telehealth, and it's been very effective in mental health, as you know, but I think the challenge has always been, and this was a case when I was in the legislature before and chairman of the Health and Human Services Committee, the insurance companies didn't want to pay on the doctor end or the practice, the office end, and also pay on the other end of the receiving where the telehealth happened. And oftentimes, at least at that time, was oftentimes in another office. So it was, instead of the same price, it was more expensive to do telehealth. And we've got to work that out, because I think that is a big future. I will share too a little bit. My late wife was diagnosed. She was a school teacher in Benson High School, and she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And she had that for 17 years. I'm proud to say that it was progressive degenerative, and we were able to keep her at home, and she was able to die here at home with her mother and my son and me all in attendance. And we tried to make her life as good as we possibly could. I'm not saying that for bully for me, but I did have some firsthand experience, not only on some hands-on care, but working with home health care. And we never did go to hospice, but she had a great attitude, but she got as good a benefit, I think, or we did as best we could, I felt. I also have a keen interest in nursing homes and rural health. I saw in the paper about a month ago where 11 nursing homes in Iowa had closed. I know a number a few years ago closed in Nebraska. We have a number of elderly people that reside in these smaller towns, and they don't have the resources, and quite honestly, at times they don't have the support group that they need, whether that's friends, neighbors, or children that can help and take care of them. That's one of the roles for government, is to step in when no one else can. So we need to do that, and a lot of that's going to be reimbursement. The recruitment one is a real tough one, because I'm told that we have, and I forget the exact number, but it seems to me like the average age of nurses in the state of Nebraska is about 57, not good, and that we have literally thousands of openings, both in the rural and in the urban areas, that we're going to have to address. And I don't think that just throwing more money at it, I think we have to talk about the professionalism of it in a lot of ways, just like being a teacher, like being in a healthcare where you have to be pretty much called for it. You can't do it just for the money. There's more to it than that. What part of your question did I fail to answer?
Let's see here.
I think you did a good job, Senator Riepe, and covered pretty much the basis. And again, unfortunately, with our limited time, I think you did a nice job covering that. And I think those were helpful responses. So if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and move on to the second question, just so we can kind of keep the flow going here. And definitely we would be happy to meet with you again at later times too, if the need arises to talk more issues.
Okay.
We appreciate that.
Okay.
So, our second question then comes from nursing facility quality, and we've kind of dabbled a little bit in this and a little bit within your answer already on the last question, but Joyce Beck is going to talk about that. So again, it's nursing facility quality. Go ahead, Joyce.
So Senator Riepe, thank you for meeting with us and taking of your time. I have a similar background. I've been in healthcare for 50 years. And I also have this exact same spousal experience that you had. So I know how very difficult that is. Over 20,000 Nebraskans require care in nursing facilities or assisted living communities. Facilities have closed their doors, citing reimbursement challenges and staffing shortages. Nebraska will need an additional 4,700 more nursing assistants, LPNs, and RNs by 2028 to meet Nebraskans' care needs. Everyone, regardless of where they reside, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect and have access to quality medical care. Better staff to resident ratios improve the overall quality of care and the well-being of residents. Workforce recruitment, retention, and job satisfaction challenges are prevalent across the long-term care services and support industry. Causes of workforce challenges must be identified and implemented to respond to the growing need for high-quality care. So my question for you is, what will you do to improve the quality of nursing facility care for Nebraska residents, including addressing the growing long-term care workforce crisis in the state, professional education and training, and accountable facility reimbursement?
Okay. I think one of the things that we have to be really careful about is just not constantly lowering the standards just to be able to meet our staffing needs. I think that's very dangerous. The comedian Robin Williams one time said, if you keep lowering the standards, at some point in time, you have to just go away. So I think we're going to have to work. I think we're going to have to talk about more professional training, more recognition. I think we're going to have to talk about different approaches. One of the things that I've always been a fan of is like Kaiser Permanente, which has a totally integrated piece. When I worked with, I think Children's felt this way, but I know the Catholic sisters did, that health is physical, mental, and spiritual, all combined in one triangular piece. And so I think we have to come at from that standpoint too. I think some of it will have to be is just finding compassionate hearts. I get nervous with and I suppose my dad said the same thing when I was young, with the millennials, in the sense of, is there enough compassion in there that would say, and with the COVID, is there enough willingness to serve with other, people's body fluids and all of those kinds of issues that make it less than attractive for some people. So we've got a big marketing, public relations kind of campaign to talk about the positive sides and the gratification for serving others. And I find that that's going to be a big challenge, but we're going to have to do it. And like everything else, it will take some money. It will take money. And with our aging population, we're going to have to spend that money. It may be an even bigger problem in rural Nebraska than it is on a per capita basis than it is here in Omaha.
Okay, thank you very much for your answer. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Riepe. And I know you did
Thank you.
have work in the legislature in the past with long-term care and all of that. And so again, if you advance, we would love to have further conversations with you because we do appreciate your thoughts on that. Our third and final question today centers around livable communities and helping people stay in their home. Danny DeLong is going to take that one. So go ahead, Danny.
Yes.
And Danny, I think you're on mute. Sorry, Senator Riepe, Danny's on mute.
Okay.
I apologize, Senator Riepe, and to the rest of the members of the panel here. I should know better than that. But anyway, AARP has taken a position that one of our chief tasks is to work toward the creation of communities which are livable. 75% of the population 50 and older wants to age in place. They want to live in their house as long as they can. They want to live in their community as long as they can. And that translates to us to our responsibility to help build livable communities. Livable communities have several features. One of the first features is that a livable community is safe and secure. It needs to have safety and security infrastructure to protect its citizens. The second feature of a livable community for us is that it offers affordable housing. And that's always going to be a challenge, especially in our rural communities. Our third feature of a livable community is transportation options that allow individuals to travel by multiple means. Again, a difficult prospect in large rural areas. And the fourth and final feature of a livable community for us is that it has to offer supportive community services for people of all ages. Those services, we think, focus on two specific aspects. One is that it provides access to healthcare, and two, that a livable community provides access to high-speed internet. So that's our understanding of what livable communities are. That's our understanding of what people need to continue to live in their own home and live in their own community. Let's talk for a moment about high-speed internet. High-speed internet should be affordable, reliable, and accessible for all Nebraskans. Digital skills development, which we also call digital literacy, is also essential to obtaining the benefits of high-speed internet access in the home. So there you have it. Now, our question is, what will you do to ensure that all Nebraskans, mainly those 50 plus, have access to livable communities which offer affordable housing, diverse transportation options, adequate health care, and affordable, reliable, and accessible high-speed internet, including digital literacy, which is the teaching of digital skills, so that people can know what types of operate the devices they purchase and can carry out the types of functions that are increasingly done by digital devices.
Okay, thank you. I will try to start with a light tone here. When I first got my smartphone, I said to my son, I'm going to need to have you help me on this. And he said, I will have Drew, that's my grandson, help you. And I said, really? And Drew was 5 years old at the time, so it was kind of a pushback to me that obviously I didn't understand the whole thing. One of the committees that I have an interest in, of one of the 2-day committees, and it all depends. You don't necessarily just say I want to be on this committee and show up, but I do have an interest in transportation. Part of that is I'm endorsed by the Farm Bureau along with the police and then Mayor Stothard and a number of other people. But broadband is a major issue in rural Nebraska, and so that would apply for these nursing homes as well. Having it and having access to systems and everything else, and then an ability and a willingness to want to participate on that is a connection with the outside world. If I am able to, and whether I don't or not, I would still be a voting member, assuming I get elected, that of support for broadband. The rural folks explained it to me. It's like during the 1930s when they first took rural electricity out to the farmers. And so that was a big piece. Transportation, we've done some of that, and there are some county and there are some federal programs. I know I see that transportation around town here. I think one of the great challenges there is having to rely on somebody else for when the transportation is going to make the run out to either the mall and they're coming back, and when they're going to go to your doctor's appointment, and just, people that are accustomed to having a car find it very frustrating, I think. But it is available to some degree, and I'm not saying it's available to the extent that it has to. Security and safety, always an issue. And with that, I think with a number of construction things, I think we've tightened down on that. And I'm not talking about security in the sense of gun violence. I'm thinking more of security of, falling down the stairs or, something that could happen there. Affordable housing is a constant issue. I think there are some pieces about it. I think we've learned our lesson hard about large group living, like the Beatrice home. We're trying to do more sizable, and ideally, if you can, you put them where the bus lines are at. You put them where they can have a grocery store and be able to get out and walk around. Going back to the broader umbrella part, I'm totally in support of trying to keep people in their homes best we can, as long as we can, as long as they're safe and sound and being watched over in a gentle way. I think the state does provide support. I remember as chairman of Health and Human Services, we provided support to families that were taking care of disabled children with, and so I'm not sure, but that's not something, well, I think it is something we need to look at, what we can do and how we should do it. I don't know, but it's to the state's advantage to have them be taken care of and paid for at the least accessible. When that's all said, we still come back to finding the staff people who have the heart to do that. I say that a little bit with my late wife. God was good to us, and we had a Peggy who worked for us for 14 years, helping take care of my wife when I was at work and my mother-in-law was at work. And I tell Peggy all the time that she was an angel sent to us, but there aren't that many angels all over to take care of people.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate your ideas today. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Riepe. And we are coming to the end of our 30 minutes here. So I would like to offer to you the final minutes for any closing thoughts or comments you might have for our members and the constituents of your district. So we have about less than 5 minutes. So however you want to end and whatever closing comments you want to make, feel free to do so now.
Well, I've had a long journey in terms of healthcare from the time I was 18. As I said, I've had it at bedside care. I've had it in administration. At one time, I ran a nursing home there at Bergen, the Mercy Care Center, and I was the vice president at that time over that operation. So I have a sense for that. I consider myself a compassionate conservative, but I know there are places and roles for state government or federal government, and there are places for us to try to maybe contract, and we don't have to be able to be the experts to do it all, but identifying some of it and making sure that we don't have people with too much pride to step forward, or they don't have anyone that doesn't alert us to the problems. And we have our own problems in state government. We've had some with foster care, and that's very disappointing when we lose a child or lose an adult because we didn't have to. So I think in that regard, and I like service. That's why I'm running again. That's why I ran for the school board. That's why I've worked since I was 18 years old for either the government in the Navy or nonprofits, and that's been my life.
Perfect. Thank you, Senator Riepe, again for taking the time to visit with us today. We wish you the best with your campaign, and thank you again for meeting with AARP. Take care.
Thank you. You're all very kind to give up your time. I do very much appreciate it.
You as well. Thanks so
Senator.
much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.